This episode is brought to you by Pine Melon. When you order groceries from Pine Melon, you're getting locally sourced items from right here in Colorado. I just ordered my groceries from Pine Melon for the first time and was able to get super creative with my family's weekly menu. This week, we're having bison burgers with antibiotic-free, hormone-free, grass-fed meat from Great Range Bison, and lettuce wraps featuring Gotham greens and Colorado Sun tofu. And if you order from Pine Melon and use promo code CityCastDenver, you'll get $75 off your first delivery. That's promo code CityCastDenver for $75 off your first order at pinemelon.com.
Today on CityCast Denver, should the city purchase a crusty old power plant and build a massive food hall? Or let some developer swoop in and put up 100 riverfront condos? Westward editor Patty Calhoun joins me to break down the debate over the Zuni power plant. Plus, is Colorado's biggest election denier about to go to prison? And stick around for a segment from our sponsors at the National Organization for Youth Safety about a free youth-led conference on transportation equity and mobility justice coming to Denver this fall. Today is Tuesday, August 13th. I'm Paul Caroli, and here's what Denver's talking about. Patty Calhoun, welcome back to CityCast Denver.
Thanks so much.
So, Patty, when you walked in the office this morning, everyone was buzzing about AI and a big crowd size. I've been waiting to ask you about it. What's up?
This was one of my favorite coincidences, almost. So Evan Simone, who does a lot of photography for us, started out here as a photographer at the Rocky Mountain News, definitely based in Denver, went to Detroit last week to shoot Kamala Harris and Tim Walz for their first big rally in Detroit, and he was doing it for the auto workers. So he sent photos to me this morning, because normally we wouldn't cover that. It's in Detroit. Mm-hmm. There's a picture of Evan, selfie, with thousands of people in the background. He sends it to me to prove that indeed there was a huge crowd there, unlike what Donald Trump is now saying, who's basically accusing the Harris campaign of completely fabricating the photo through AI, that there was no one in the crowd at all. Huh. And if you look at the photos we've put online, there was a huge crowd. Evan swears by these. He's real. He took them.
Yeah,
He's in them.
This morning, I saw his camera.
Right, exactly.
That's so funny. So you were seeing Trump post about this online, and you were like,
Trump was posting about it. It was
check.
all over CNN this morning. And I thought, well, we've got the fact check on it.
Yeah, here it is.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, of course, Trump was in Aspen, which was not quite as crowded.
He was in Aspen this week?
He was in Aspen Saturday night for a big
money.
Private fundraiser.
I'm sure he found some.
He did. They paid $500,000, the hosts, each.
Wow. That's Aspen for you. Well, that actually plays into our first topic here really, really well, because, it's kind of Trump related. Trump, of course, famously still denies that he lost the 2020 election. And we're going to talk about this trial that's going on for one of Colorado's most famous election deniers. I've been waiting to talk to you about this. I'm so excited to hear, because I haven't really been following this story. Tina Peters. I think people might know the name, but can you refresh our memory about who she is?
So back in 2020, she was the election clerk for Mesa County.
Sure. Okay.
And she was one of the early buy-in people for the election denial. She completely believed that Donald Trump's argument that he'd won and it was stolen, that everything was rigged. Donald Trump especially thinks Colorado's rigged, even though everyone else says it's the gold standard. And so Tina Peters, who had been the election clerk, winds up enabling someone to go into the secure system in Mesa County and actually take some of the coding out, this confidential coding, and then flies off to a top secret election deniers bash. Actually, it wasn't so top secret because they were all talking all over. That happened to star Mike Lindell of Pillow Kingdom.
Mr. My Pillow himself.
Mr. My Pillow, who then took her off and hid her for a while because obviously she was in a certain amount of trouble from letting this guy come in under false pretenses.
Huh. So I think that central irony of her being an elections worker, the county clerk for Mesa County, and then also being skeptical of how well the election has gone. That seems to be why this case matters more. So what do we know from the trial? I know it's been going on the last couple of weeks. What have we learned?
Know the closing arguments are right now while we're talking, so we don't know what they're saying. She did not testify in her own defense. The judge absolutely laid down the laws. This was on the Western Slope. The judge absolutely laid down the law on certain things, like he was not going to have arguments about election denying, about the election being stolen. It was all about what was or was not legal to do in that clerk's office. So it didn't get quite as wild as it could have. And in fact, two of her previous employees, she's no longer, of course, the clerk, testified against her. They took plea bargains. But you wonder, this is where, Dominion, which is based in Colorado, supplies so much. Most of the counties in Colorado get their systems from Dominion. Most of the states in this country get their systems from Dominion. So it's not like she was suggesting that people opened envelopes incorrectly in her election office. She was basically saying once the votes were put in, Dominion manipulated them.
Interesting. So, what exactly did she do? I mean, you're talking about going in and stealing coding, but I don't understand the allegation of the crime she's accused of.
Well, and bringing in someone who was not authorized. So there was trespassing, and she was letting people trespass in her own office.
Huh.
And then taking confidential documents to Mike Lindell's crew at this big convention of deniers.
Where who knows what happened to them from there.
Right.
I mean, she hasn't provided evidence that the election was stolen.
No, there is no evidence that the election was stolen. And in fact, there had to be a lot of cleanup, but nothing in that showed a stolen election or screwed up future elections. But Dominion's had to add new levels of security. Every clerk's office has. That's the other thing that's really bad, which is most of Colorado's 64 counties have clerks that are so hardworking, that have taken so much abuse over the last 4 years for the hard work they're doing, when in fact, Colorado has mail-in ballots. They have such checks and balances. They have audits. We had the former Secretary of State, Wayne Williams, go out with the current Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, to say, our systems are fair.
Yeah, we have this system that has so much bipartisan backing here, people are so proud of, and yet nationally it's controversial. It's so odd how that happens.
And it was interesting. I watched CNN, which was again on the spot this morning about the Trump AI accusations, is doing a fairly deep dive into election deniers, and they had Mike Lindell on last night in this series they've been doing, and he's still denying. He's gone $49 million in debt denying it, but there are so many podcasts and social media outlets now for people who still absolutely believe the election was stolen, and it could be again.
It's like a whole cottage industry.
Cottage industry that is, unfortunately, a lot of it is here.
Do you expect it to be a big issue in the election, this fall as we lead up to November again?
After the election, if Trump doesn't win, I expect it to be a big but fake issue. I mean, I think we have enough checks and balances in place that we can trust what the outcome is going to be. It's going to be what follows that outcome.
Yeah. Interesting. So how about this trial itself? Like you said, the jury is going to be deliberating. Do you have a sense of which way they're going to come down on this?
Oh, I think she'll get convicted of something. Too strange. Now, the only thing I don't know is really much about the jury, because it's a relatively small area in population. They've probably all heard of this. They may have opinions, but said they could be fair. I would think because of the employees who turned on her and testified against her, we will definitely see her found guilty of something.
All right. Well, if we do get a verdict from the jury before this episode airs, I'll drop in an update in just a second here. But otherwise, we're going to go to a quick break and come back and talk about a very valuable piece of real estate.
Perfect.
Hey, it's Paul. I'm dropping in a few hours after Patty and I recorded this conversation because the jury has already delivered their verdict. They found Tina Peters guilty of 7 of the 10 charges related to her 2021 breach of elections equipment in Mesa County. Peters is now facing a prison sentence of up to 22 and a half years, according to Marshall Zellinger of 9 News.
This episode is brought to you by Choir League. Launched in Denver in September 2018, this social singing club is geared towards young professionals and meets once a week in a local bar, restaurant, or business for rehearsal and a happy hour. Choir League welcomes singers of all ability levels, so whether you only sing in your car or you have a music degree, you'll be right at home. The group performs every 8 weeks with flexible scheduling and a no-pressure environment. Sign up only for the concert cycles that fit your life. You don't even have to audition for Choir League. Truly, anyone is welcome to join. Think of it like your local kickball team, but for singing. They create a supportive environment with resources to help you stay on top of your singing game while having fun and making new friends. Choir League is also taking a trip to South Africa next year and would love for you to come along. For a list of performance dates and to register for the fall cycle starting at the end of August, visit choirleague.com. That's choirleague.com. This episode is brought to you by the Arvada Center. The Broadway smash Waitress the Musical comes to Colorado this fall. Featuring the music of Sarah Bareilles, this acclaimed work tells the story of a small-town diner waitress who leaves her rocky marriage to change her fate and future with her pie-making skills. And who doesn't like pie? The production features an all-local cast and all-woman creative team behind this sweet, sassy, and empowering feminist musical about a woman finding her way. The heartwarming story comes to life on stage as a celebration of friendship, chosen family, and the joys of a good pie. Waitress the Musical runs from August 30th through October 13th at the Arvada Center. For tickets and more information, visit arvadacenter.org. That's arvadacenter.org.
All right, and we're back. Another hot topic here in Denver right now. What should be done with the old Zuni Street power plant that stands just south of Empower Field along the South Platte River? Why are people talking about this old power plant, Patty?
Because it's a big piece of property in a prime area of Denver. It is right by the South Platte. It's near Sun Valley. It's south of the stadium. All that development is going to be going on there. So first of all, it's really a lovely setting. Used to be more a warehouse factory, obviously, because it's a 136-year-old plant. But that is an area that's going through such an upgrade. It was funny, I talked to John Diefenbeck, who's the executive director of Historic Denver, when they came up with the El Chapultepec deal. And I asked him, what's the next flashpoint? So this was about 2 months ago. He goes, Zuni power plant, no question.
Really?
Because the city has the right of first refusal to buy it from Xcel. Xcel has already decommissioned it. They've already sold some land around it, but they own the power plant itself, the steam plant. Denver can buy it. It's got 60 days to say whether it wants it, and then it would have a little extra time to get an appraisal on it to find out what it's worth. But the biggest problem is it's going to be a lot of money, and Denver would have to keep it in some form if Xcel would just like to knock it down. But Denver would have to find a use for it, and the neighborhood groups are really eager for Denver to buy it and turn it into some kind of community center, maybe an art gallery. I mean, it is a stunning setting, and it could be very cool. You've seen what's happened with old industrial plants and grain elevators and things across Colorado that have been used for community centers.
Sure. I mean, just look at the old tramway building at the Confluence, and it's now the beautiful REI flagship, right. One of the best landmarks in the city. Gorgeous. And so
steam plant down in Salida, there are so many interesting projects that have gone, and this would be another one. And Sun Valley and Alma Lincoln, the two neighborhoods most affected, feel like it's their turn to get a break and get a good deal, because these are impoverished neighborhoods that have been torn apart, especially Sun Valley, as they've been redoing DHA housing. So they would like to see something nice come into their community.
Yeah, I mean, I know many families were displaced a few years ago. That neighborhood is in such a point of transition. Speak to that bigger picture, though, for a second, because we got the other players here, I think, are the Broncos. There's constant talk about whether or not they're going to build another stadium somewhere else or build a new one right in this spot. And then also there's of course, Stan Kroenke's plans for
Ballerina.
Just a little down river on the Platte for Ballerina and the parking
and the River
lots.
Mile.
And the right. River Mile. How do you think this would fit into that bigger future?
Well, it certainly makes that property more valuable. So this would be just past where the River Mile ends. But you've got Ball Arena, right by the Platte, we've got is going to be a really big development. Then you've got the River Mile, a separate development going straight down the Platte, and the stadium's up for grabs. And originally, the stadium was going to do some development just south of it, but I think now we're looking instead, probably, the more you hear the hints, there will be a push for a new stadium altogether, which would let you develop where the stadium is now.
What's your sense from the city? Is there any appetite to buy this place?
Well, the city would have to find the money. I think there probably is an appetite to buy it if they could get it for a bargain. Now, you would pay for a bargain for it, and it would cost a lot to do any kind of renovation. They've already had to do remediation for pollution, and that's been done for Excel already had to do it to sell some of the surrounding property.
Okay, so it is clean.
Well,
based on
not
your
the building
reporting?
itself, probably. I'm sure there's a lot of remediation that has to be done in the building.
And I would guess, actually, now that we're talking about it, it probably has to be different levels of remediation depending on the different uses.
Right. If it's a parking lot, yeah. I mean, look at right now the remediation that was done at Rocky Flats or at the Rocky Mountain Arsenal. Very different remediation if it's going to be open space than if it's going to be people living there.
Yeah. So, and Excel's thinking like, we're not going to spend extra to clean it up for like a food hall use if we're just going to end up knocking it down.
Well, if they're going to knock it down,
what a waste
right.
of
I
money.
mean, why worry about taking the asbestos out in a very tidy way if they could just do it when they knock it down?
All right. So something else interesting about this is just the Platte River itself. You quoted in your story about this at Westward that one of the board members of La Alma Lincoln Park Neighborhood Association was saying that, doing something with this building would really complement the other efforts at improving the Platte River. Now, I know City Council has been talking about this lately, but what do you think that means? What are those efforts going to mean?
Well, City Council has a whole committee now working on it that was just set up last month. The Platte River used to be so polluted, no one would go near it. No one would go in it. Now, maybe against their better judgment, people go in there. Confluence Park is like a beach on a hot day. And the South Platte has become a really strong recreation area all the way along. You go from depending on Suncor isn't the most beautiful spot on the South Platte, and there's some others that have problems, but it is a really big recreational open space artery through Denver, like the Cherry Creek Trail, but even bigger, beautiful. There's some really tranquil areas, and how the space next to it will be redeveloped for housing, could be very pricey housing. Will it be open space? It's going to be a big fight.
A big fight and take many, many years. And just getting back to the price of this thing. So like, let's say the city decides it does want to buy it, like to even try. What dollar amount would you even expect?
Well, that's the whole point of an appraisal, because if the city says we are interested, Excel will do an appraisal, then the city would have the right to say no. And that's because the city has given Excel, has the contract with the city to provide power. The big question would be, could Excel, out of the goodness of its heart and the fleecing of taxpayers for many, many years, decide, let's give it to Denver for a modest amount? I mean, that would be a lovely push. If that doesn't happen, you wonder, will Historic Denver do something like a hostile designation the way they did it? They pushed for El Chapultepec.
So that would be Historic Denver coming in. How would that work?
Well, a hostile designation basically means you go in and you say, this building qualifies for landmark protection. And in the case of El Chapultepec, Historic Denver did file that at the last second so they could have more negotiating room when the owners wanted to tear it down and replace it. And they came up with a good compromise. Hard to tell. You're not going to tear down part of this. You're either going to knock it all down, I would think, or keep it. But if they go in and do a hostile designation, say this qualifies, and there are different levels of qualification. You've got to have you have to meet certain criteria, but obviously a 136-year-old steam plant, it's going to meet the criteria.
You think for sure?
If someone applies. It will, enough to apply and have it taken seriously and maybe hold everyone's feet to the fire to do some kind of compromise.
Who are the deciders then? Is it council or the mayor or who?
Well, ultimately the decision is, it goes to Landmark Commission. They study it. They say whether or not they think it's possible that this is, the staffers will say whether it fits. Then it goes to Landmark Commission. They vote. If they vote in favor of it, then it goes to council.
Interesting. So then council would decide, and then it really becomes part of their bigger conversation about the future
So then
of
it
the
becomes,
South Platte and
if you buy
how do
it,
you zone
you're right,
the
exactly.
neighborhood
And you can buy it, it can still be sold. But if it's a landmark, there's limited amounts of things you can do with it.
If you had to guess, 5 years, what does this thing look like? What's the most likely outcome? What would you say?
I think Mike Johnston is looking for some wins that do something other than house homeless. And there's no way this is going to be housing homeless. But I think it would be a real win for his administration if he can figure out how to do it. And I think you can use some power, literally, with the power company behind the scenes.
Yeah. I kind of think you're right. It kind of feels like that right now. I don't know if I have any good evidence for it, but it just feels like the thing that's going to happen. I mean, and it's right there by the highway too. It's so visible.
Right.
You wouldn't want it to go wrong. It could be an opportunity for something to be proud of. Everybody's going to see it every day.
And we see so much development going up around that you could easily see the option would be someone knocking it down and building a lot of apartment complexes.
Yeah.
That would have nice river views. But I think having more open space with a community center in the middle of it would be great.
It's an opportunity. It's a big decision for the city. I mean, it benefits on both sides.
Well, and of course, part of the appraisal won't just be what it would take to make it usable, but what it would take to not make it dangerous. I don't think there's been enough remediation done inside yet. So that would have to be done.
Interesting. Well, Patty, we'll be watching that one. I mean, 60 days from July 26th, when Excel sent a notice to the city, is I think like mid-September. So
right. So the city would have to let them know by then if they're interested. Then they could have a little more time for the appraisal.
We'll see. We'll have to have you back and talk about it when we get more information there. All right. So one more break, and then we got a really terrific sponsored segment about how Denver's youth are making our streets safer for everyone. But for now, Patty, thanks so much for joining me.
My pleasure.
This episode is brought to you by Denver's Magazine. Want to know more about the Mile High City's arts and culture scene from the actual artists themselves? Check out Denver's, a new magazine featuring poetry, fiction, and essays from Denver greats like Sam Tallent, Susie Q. Smith, Tom Murphy, and more. Denver's is an entirely independent, all grassroots operation with no corporate backers. It's community-driven and locally focused. This magazine is also proud to be AI-free, meaning all the writing and art you see, read, and enjoy across its pages is made by real, local, human artists. The next issue comes out this fall, and you can subscribe right now and get a physical copy sent right to your mailbox. I don't know about you, but one of my favorite activities of all time is to sit back and enjoy a cup of coffee with a gorgeous, well-written magazine in my hand. Read the latest issue and subscribe right now by visiting denvers.com. That's DENVERSE.com.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hi, I'm CityCast Content Director Andrea Salenzi. Did you know that the National Organization for Youth Safety is based in Denver? That's because if any city is going to reimagine traffic safety, it's going to happen right here. Leading the way is Jacob Smith. He's the Executive Director for the National Organization for Youth Safety, aka NOYS. Welcome.
Hi.
So the National Organization for Youth Safety, you go by NOYS.
Yes, we make noise all the time.
Tell us about this organization and what brought you here to Denver.
Yes, so NOYS was founded, interestingly, by the U.S. Department of Transportation. So as this really cool space where national organizations could come together to create best practices for addressing teen driver safety. After a 25-year-old history, or close to 25 years, for the past few years, the organization has strategically shifted our resources to truly center young people. And so that's who we are today. We're an organization that pays, we equip, we built the capacity of marginalized youth to address transportation equity and mobility justice. So you're like, why is this national organization moving from DC, the place where national organizations should be, to Denver? And made this big move to Denver because Denver is popping with the funding, with the opportunity for innovative transportation strategies and solutions, opportunities, innovative projects related to transportation and climate environmental justice. And so we want to position ourselves to support these efforts and allow young people to see that they can have an active role in transforming their transportation system.
You're hosting the largest youth-led transportation equity and mobility justice convening this fall. It is free for Colorado residents. In broad terms, what is #NYTEC 2024?
Yes. NYTEC 2024, this September. Ultimately, you can say transportation equity, mobility justice. We have a whole list of themes throughout the conference, but ultimately we want people to reimagine and have a role in the freedom to move. This conference, we were so grateful that as a national organization, we've been partnering with Colorado Department of Transportation, who's the host sponsor, but also Lyft, Denver Streets Partnership, Colorado Department of Public Health, ultimately like all the players, RTD, CDOT, the folks who are actually going to be at the forefront of designing our transportation system now and for forever. It's a really uniquely curated conference that is for anyone of all ages, but 90% of those folks are young people, 15 to 29. And we want it to be for folks to have fun. There's going to be drag queens. There's going to be like US DOT officials, environmental justice folks, dancers, like truly the freedom to move. Why come to a conference and be sitting at a table and you don't have the freedom to move?
So who are you excited to see speak, perform? What panels do you think will be the most spicy?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost is like the opening, which is featuring all US DOT former senior advisors. So it's a panel discussion that's really like, okay, like let's start off, if we want an equitable transportation system, who are the folks who actually created these plans? What do we do right? What do we do wrong? And so the entire conference is so unique in that we have folks who are creating policies around car crash testing, around like building equitable transportation systems, all this great stuff that you all can come and get to know about.
So what are you hoping the attendees are going to leave with? What do you want them to do after they leave a conference like this?
Yeah, so for Colorado, it's like, hey, people are looking at you all. People are looking at the awesome projects that are happening, which attendees will have the opportunity to like see these projects that are happening around the city. But I think it's like, how are we ensuring that Coloradoans have the knowledge and the skills and the network to actually provide input, whether that's for 5 minutes or whether that's they want to join a community meeting with Denver Streets Partnership, but really shifting the power from these traditional modes to people who are using our transportation system.
And then what's next for Noise after NYTEC 2024?
NYTEC actually will be in Denver for the next 3 years. As a national organization, we want to truly ensure that we are shifting our funding and like prioritizing investments for meaningful change in Denver. So I think the national convening will continue, but we are launching a Colorado BIPOC Youth Transportation Equity Fellowship. So I think nonprofits have a ton of language, like we always have 20 words, but ultimately, this program is an opportunity for young people to be paid $30 an hour to develop hyperlocal interventions in Denver addressing transportation equity. So really putting the resources, putting the funding and the opportunities for Colorado folks to actually engage in this work and not just come to a convening and not know the next steps.
Jacob, thanks for being here.
Yes.
Again, the largest youth-led convening on transportation equity and mobility justice is coming up September 20th and 21st. It is free for Colorado residents. Check out noise.org to learn more. That's noys.org. And we'll have a link for you in the show notes.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed the show, why not take a minute to tell Tina Peters about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey Denver, and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you then. Oh my. Oh my. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's very easy.